Let's talk about this with Amy Tarkanian, who's a Republican strategist, who's also former chair of the Nevada Republican Party. Good morning to you, Amy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? The one man who's most likely to get the Republican nomination, with or without criminal prosecutions getting in the way, is the man who refuses to appear in these Republican debates on the basis that why should he? He's already leading the crowd, and that is Donald Trump, and he wasn't at this debate.
Sure, and it is a strategy, and it's probably a wise one, especially after watching last night's debacle. It was quite frustrating to listen to because
why a debacle?
Well, it was a bunch of obnoxious, over-talking one another.
Hey, these are my favorite people. I'm doing it now.
Well, quite honestly, you know, and there were a number of candidates that were rambling with very little substance and just trying to get a word in edgewise. And it seemed like the moderators were struggling to regain control at a number of points throughout last night's debate.
That sounds like a failure of the moderator. I mean, I remember doing Tory Hustings debate last year, and literally having to say to one person, I remember Rishi Sunak looking at me in absolute horror as I said to the man, "Sit down." I mean, I just said to him, sit down. You're not going to ask a question. If I have to carry on saying sit down for 40 minutes, I'm thinking, I will not let you ask a question because you're interrupting someone else. But this is the thing. Look, 7 candidates on stage. They all way behind Donald Trump. Many people were hoping that Ron DeSantis, the Republican governor of Florida, a Democrat state normally, was going to be, he'd get on the scene. He's got a lot of Donald Trump appeal without all of the baggage, and he's nowhere in the polls.
No, and he's pretty much, it seems like he's peaked, and that's the concern. And so now you've got articles that are coming out saying that donors are looking at Governor Nikki Haley. And, and it was interesting to see the feedback on social media when she would respond to certain topics that she was they would say she was aggressive, but they were almost misogynistic or sexist in a way where you would see some primary voters really aren't ready for a very strong female. So that was disappointing to see some Republicans, even some females, who are influencers, make comments about
I have to say, I don't find her an engaging person at all, actually, and I couldn't care less whether she's man or woman. Let's have we just got one little clip of the Republican debate. The former New Jersey governor, Chris Christie, at one point a candidate previously, then he was pro-Trump, anti-Trump. It's difficult to keep up with Chris Christie, but he was taking aim at both Trump and Joe Biden. Here's what he had to say.
Because Joe Biden hides in his basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions.
Well, I mean, that is a fair point, isn't it? That Donald Trump, is part of the reason why they're in that room. But also Joe Biden, look, this is the thing. Joe Biden is not facing primaries. He's an incumbent president. And he's, other things being equal, he will be the candidate in November next year. But there's a lot of per se uncertainty now among many Democrats about whether he should be the candidate, isn't it? Because there are obviously big concerns about the criminal and civil prosecutions of Donald Trump, but there are also massive concerns about the cognitive abilities of the US president sitting in the White Office right now. White House.
Right. I mean, we're actually in a lose-lose situation if you want to look at the nominees that we're bound to have on both sides. And so that's why you're seeing, Governor Gavin Newsom, he was in the audience last night. And supposedly the Biden administration, sent them to be a representation. But the rumors are getting pretty heavy that he is, being viewed as somebody who could be a possible replacement of President Biden. And so it seems the fact that he's even now agreed to do a debate against Governor Ron DeSantis on Fox News in November is also questionable as to where his end game is going to be.
That is very interesting. That is being mooted as a serious possibility. We've seen some editorials and some of the really Democrats supporting newspapers and, as you say, debates online. I always like to do this to our guests very ruthlessly. You have to put money on it. November 24. Who are the two candidates, the Democrats and the Republicans?
Well, I think, unfortunately, we're going to have President Trump and the Republican side, and I think last night solidified that. And I think on the Democrat side, we're most likely either going to have a re-election of President Biden, and then he's probably going to step down not too far into his re-election, and we'll have a replacement of whoever his VP ends up being. Or we could end up having a Governor Newsom as what there's supposedly saying going to be appointed as VP and then move up.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, I think one of the biggest fears a lot of people have, whatever party, is Kamala Harris stepping into the role. I mean, absolutely complete useless character. Really good to talk to you, Amy Tarkanian. Thank you very much indeed, Republican Strategist.